happy January 25th week. We've got I'm going to take a slightly different approach for today's all hands meeting. And the plan here is I'm actually going to run you through the Leyline Pitch. And this is a pitch deck that a lot of the team has worked very hard on for the past 2 to 3 weeks in conjunction with a whole other amount of documentation needed for investors and sponsors and donors. So as you know, for the past month or so, a big focus has been, hey, we need to put some energy against funding and make sure that we can actually feed the army, essentially. So it's been a long journey to get there, but I feel like we're in a really good place. So I wanted to kind of share some of the output for the rest of the team, and a big thanks to everybody on the funding pod that really participated a lot. So the idea is, if we can run through the pitch all together and do a Q&A as if you guys were all investors or donors or sponsors or whatever, that is a perfect way to get people to see what we're trying to do, because we could just post this video online somewhere and, make it viewable. So if people are having a hard time understanding what we're doing, we might as well pitch the whole world. That's what I figured, at least. So we're going to try that out as an experiment, and, stick around afterwards for Q&A, etc. Before I get started, anybody want to ask a question or make a comment if they think this is a bad idea or good idea? All right.
I think it's a very good idea. Just want you to know that.
It's going to be a very interesting Monday with me, myself, and I. Okay, can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, yep. Cool. Okay, so we are going to go right into it. So hello, everybody. We are going to be here to talk about Leyline. And what we're trying to accomplish here is build an ecosystem of positive impact. So Leyline is a nonprofit, open source, and open knowledge project. And we are pretty much brand new, launching in November. So if we were to simplify the concept of Leyline into just the most dumbest basic thing, it's really a loyalty program for doing good deeds in the real world. So as a platform, we actually connect people with causes that they care about, then we reward them for pitching in, and then at the same time, the entire ecosystem is actively helping to solve global problems like cancer and climate change. That's the value proposition. And so the problem that we're trying to solve is that it sucks to do good in the real world. You've got to pay money, or you got to dedicate your time, or you have to open up your network and your contacts to make any difference. And the challenge is that there's not a great feedback mechanism. You don't really see the impact that you have in many of these instances. So what we want to do is make it easy for people to discover and contribute to impactful causes that they care about. We are able to track and reward these contributions and essentially create this digital resume of all the good that you've done in the world. And so essentially, we're just gamifying good deeds. And the side benefit is that because we're connecting to all of these different charities and nonprofits and NGOs, we're actually helping them with user acquisition and retention and engagement, which then reduces their operational overhead. And it allows their funding to go directly into their programs and to their causes. So it's a net benefit for all of these different stakeholders. So what we've done here is actually created this donation engine, or it's a positive reinforcing feedback loop, or a reinforcing economy. So the way it actually starts is that our users come in and they see all the different ways that they can have an impact, whether it's exercising once a day, getting a good night's sleep, practicing mindfulness at the individual level. There's the community level where you can be donating blood or volunteering to a local soup kitchen. And then there's the global level if you just donate your computing power to accelerate cancer research, climate research, COVID research, etc. So as users are doing these real world good deeds, they're racking up and earning Leyline points. And these Leyline points are then used to redeem any number of different rewards in our prize pool. So it could be gift cards or coupon codes or free games or free items coming in from our sponsors. And in conjunction, we're also rewarding users with digital items. And these are non-fungible tokens that are on a blockchain. And essentially what that means is that they are extremely secure, unhackable, and they're owned by the user, so they can trade and sell it on their own. So the beauty behind this is that as users own these non-fungible tokens and these unique Leyline items, they can trade and sell that between each other. And that's actually how we self-sustain this engine, is that the transaction fees help to fund the operations and just keeps on going. So the nice thing about this is that by partnering with sponsors that are donating their goods to this prize pool, it's actually going to demonstrate that these brands are having a successful program through this nonprofit, and it'll be incentivized to create more prizes into the prize pool, or donate more prizes to the prize pool. So that's how we get the entire circular ecosystem. So the interesting thing about us is that we end up hitting this very powerful cross-section of key demographics. And so our first go-to-market strategy is really focusing on gamers, students, and blockchain users. And the wonderful thing here is that most of our team are actually coming in from the tech and video game industry. So we have the expertise, the networks, and the context to actually build a product that's appropriate for this audience. So the reason why gamers are going to be the vanguard for our strategy is that they're early adopters, they're tech savvy, they understand and they attribute value to digital assets. So gamers have spent over $180 billion on digital assets in 1 year. And since gamers tend to skew quite young, the average age is around 33 or so, they're actually seeking products that align with their values. And so millennials, Generation Z, are really looking for brands that they care about that are going to improve the future because they are going to be living longer. And so what's interesting is that students actually overlap quite significantly with gamers. About 97% of US teens play games. It's a startling statistic, but this is the truth. And that's just in North America. And on top of that, because we're in a blockchain space, building non-fungible tokens and leveraging cryptocurrencies, that's an entire 100 million person audience with 29 million just Bitcoin active wallets in and of itself. So yeah, this is a massive audience, and this is just to begin. And what we want to do is take a narrow focus and make sure our product fit is actually resonating with this core audience, and it allows us to expand from there. So what's interesting is that we are hitting a space that doesn't exist. Right now, there is no such thing as an aggregator that quantifies the good that you've done in the world and build a cash value incentive program on top of that and gamifies it along with digital assets. So you can think of Leyline as a mashup of a loyalty program and a collectible card game, and we are empowering and partnering with all these different nonprofits on the planet. And that's a beautiful thing, is that we are entering a space where nobody is really there. And so it creates this huge opportunity for us. And in particular, as we start establishing these partnerships, it becomes a network effect where everybody is gaining out of it. So it's a positive sum game that we're creating. So our plan is to grow significantly, and we have different launch phases. So when we launched in November, we're essentially conducting a friends and family alpha and focusing a lot on building a core community of early adopters that can participate in building a platform and become our biggest advocates. So we started in North America as our first test market. In Q1 of 2021, we're going to be moving towards the closed beta, focusing on building up these partnerships and different causes and your digital resume and your profile. And our targets have 2,000 users by the end of Q1. Which we're on great track for right now. I think we're at about 1,300. I'll take a look at the stats. In Q2 of 2021, we want to get into our beta launch and have the marketplace in place where people are actually able to trade their non-fungible tokens. And so at the same time, we're going to be pushing into Latin America, which is our second market. And by then, start to see some parabolic growth with our users. And in Q2 in 2022 is when we go to our global launch and move into decentralized governance, where the entire platform starts being owned by all the different community members and stakeholders. And at that point, we're probably aiming about 500,000 users within that 1 year period. There are plenty of milestones between Q2 2021 and Q2 2022, but that's really the pathway that we're going on. And if you'd like to see that entire roadmap, we have it much more fleshed out in different documents. So the question is, where are we today? So these stats are actually a week old, and we've already gotten, I think, 1290 platform users. So we're growing at a pretty steady clip. We've got over 50 volunteers and contributors on the project, over 300 community members on our Discord server, and we've raised $100K in pre-seed funding. And in terms of real world impact, we already have users active and doing good things. So there's over 1,200 days of our users exercising and checking in. Over 10,000 days of scientific research contributed to accelerate cancer, COVID, climate change. And we've had a blood donation, which could potentially save up to 3 lives. So we still have to roll out that full program. So there's not a ton of stats there yet. We've made a nice big splash when it comes to press and media. So tons of fantastic articles and lots of media impressions. And actually what that's created is actually building in our early adopter community, but also it's been powerful to recruit a lot of very high talent, passionate volunteers that are contributing to the cause in many different ways. And probably the most critical piece is that we are establishing a lot of very important partnerships, both on the brand side, on the academia side, and the nonprofit side. And so these conversations are continuing to grow, and more contacts flow in each week. So we've got a solid team here. This is kind of representative of some of the leadership team, but honestly, we are such a big organization now and a relatively flat hierarchy that the organization can function almost autonomously over time. And the great thing is that even though we're a nonprofit, we have a very strong business model. And this is another innovation that's not very common in the nonprofit space. So you can see here the different revenue streams that we have: transaction fees, item NFT sales, sponsorships, and donations and grants. And early on, what you'll see is that we're going to lean a bit heavier on donations and grants, sponsorships, and investments. But as we start to get critical mass with our user base, it's really about the transaction fees by the volume of non-fungible tokens that are traded that will generate most of the revenue. And as we exceed our operational costs with that profit is going to go right back into the prize pool or to address global problems like climate change. So we'll invest in carbon negative initiatives and then just keep that engine moving year over year. So that's the plan. Very simple pitch. And I would love to answer any questions that you might have. Would you be interested in investing in Leyline? Would you be interested in being a sponsor? Would you be interested in donating? Oh, please raise your hand. Let me know. So yeah, what questions do you have with that pitch? Let me know what doubts or concerns you may have.
But when you're talking about the 10,000 days of scientific research, now is that BOINC or is that Leyline specifically?
That is BOINC. So we are actually partnered with BOINC and UC Berkeley. And essentially, what we're doing is really driving users and incentivizing to keep on donating. And the way that BOINC works is that you just literally leave your computer on in the background overnight and just install this simple application. And what it'll do is crunch data for these scientific researchers. And these researchers just need the computing power because they don't have a ton of money to pay for Google Cloud servers or AWS. And so what they're doing is actually hosting up their projects. And it could be, hey, I need to, stimulate protein folding or simulate the gravitational waves of, stuff in space. And Daniel, you probably know way more about this than I do.
The reason why I was actually asking about this, because I think this is a very dangerous territory here. That number there is tricky or dangerous because someone sees that and they ask that, and then you say, no, that's BOINC. They're going to say, oh, so not Leyline, but BOINC. And you're going to say, yeah, that's true. But, Leyline uses BOINC and we incentivize people and they say, no, but this impressive figure has been done by BOINC, not by you.
This number is actually Leyline users contributing at least 24 hours of computing power and time to the BOINC platform. So it is Leyline users contributing to scientific research through.
Is it?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's correct.
Oh,
So
okay.
these are Leyline specific users, not
Okay,
not
then I
BOINC.
understood. That was my question. I didn't know
Correct.
if the 10,000 hours were BOINC users in general or the subset of Leyline users who have downloaded. Oh wow,
Leyline
Only
users.
Leyline users.
that
Yeah.
is really impressive. That's fantastic.
It's significant, man. Yeah, it's
That is-
massive.
That's fantastic.
And this is with a very small user base. So you could only imagine as we start to get into the thousands and then the tens of thousands, it's an incredible amount of contributions that we can make. And, you know, I think the narrative there is really interesting because what is happening right now is that these volunteer programs, what happens is they get a spike from some news or article or some milestone, like a pandemic. But what happens is over time, they end up losing users because there's no engagement mechanisms. There's no retention mechanisms. Yeah. So we are basically coming in and saying, hey, listen, we can gamify this whole experience and make it super fun and rewarding. And then people can earn money from doing this. And so that's a massive retention mechanism that's also going to allow them to grow too. And the benefit of providing that type of value to these nonprofits is that they get to continue to grow and not spend any time trying to do marketing or PR or gamification, which is outside their realm of expertise. So it's a great matchup for all of us. And we could use that same model with any other nonprofit or cause in pretty much the same exact way. So it's a very powerful mechanism.
Cool. Yeah.
I'm guessing why that number looks so big is because I'm pretty sure it's computing hours by core. So I have 16 cores, so I'm computing at 16 days per day, per real days.
Yes, but our Leyline platform will actually cap your contribution at 24 hours. So even if you've contributed more, our system will not actually accept those additional hours.
Yeah, no, I understand that. That's a great call out for the audience. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in case anyone's interested, the logic that we put in place and the principle behind it is that we wanted to make sure there's as equitable a distribution of Leyline points as possible. So say, for example, you've got a super powered PC versus somebody that's just on their Android phone donating. We don't want to create this gap in opportunity just because you have access to much better hardware and capital. So that is very important for us because one of our bigger markets is actually going to be the developing world, where people don't have tons of PCs, they really just have a smartphone. And the benefit that they get from these cash value prizes is proportionally massive because $25 of a gift card in Venezuela is way more impactful in terms of salary and cost of living, where the poorest individual in Venezuela has a monthly salary of $3 US. So we're talking about almost a year's worth of salary with just one prize. So it's why we want to create this equitable platform that can enable this opportunity for people to earn at the same pace as the rest of the community. So that's just some principle behind how we're trying to set up the ecosystem, because we do really believe in fairness and equal opportunity. Other questions? Comments? Feedback? Is anything missing from this picture?
I feel like the one thing that always ends up happening is it sounds way too good to be true. And I'm afraid this is rather unhelpful because I don't have any specific solution, nor can I necessarily put this any more explicitly, but there's a part that just ends up feeling, like this is too good to be true and there's some sort of catch somewhere. And especially I think investors would be very wary of that. And also Eugenia just raised a great point.
Yeah, that is a good one. I think, Eugenia, we can add that to the appendix slides for sure. And yeah, Daniel, I feel you, man. I mean, because like that's often the response that I get for people that are just introduced to the concept very early, at least, and also it's really kind of friends of friends, where we have our community, recommending it to their friends, and those friends are just like, wait, is this real? Like, is this possible? This feels like a scam, etc. So there's a big challenge on our side to make sure we can educate people and have a very clear message and provide a sense of trust and security in what we're building. And I think we're still learning. We're still experimenting with that and figuring it out. And I think the key is just constantly solicit feedback, especially from our community in Discord. There are many, many passionate people that every week we're growing, and every week they're getting more and more invested in making Leyline a success. So I think we have a great resource there to, get that feedback. Bryan.
That's actually.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. That's actually something I'm kind of missing in what you just said. What I'm missing in the presentation, like the chart we're seeing right now, is like the one kind of talking about the community, and it doesn't really translate how vibrant and interesting this community is. And I think it might be worth trying to communicate that in a more human way, because that's also a way to address Danielle's point on this is too good to be true. It's like, no, actually, this is true. Look, this is the people doing that. This is the, I mean, you have the team, but the team, it looks like a corporate chart of any company. Like, well, if you put a chart together with like some memes, some of, I don't know, faces of a screenshot of the community meeting or stuff like that, something that humanizes this side of the conversation and show that this dimension of Leyline as well. Like, this is a human enterprise. Like, when you open saying that it's an ecosystem of positive impact, like this is people enabling other people to do good, and I think showing people there is actually is an. I mean, it's subjective and it's more expressionist than actually rational, but putting people in there and humanity, this vibrancy of the community, I think would be a nice complement to like these very structured and rationalized point of view.
I love that, Antoine. Thank you so much. That's excellent feedback. Because I agree with you. I mean, like, spending time in Discord and like engage the community, you feel it. You feel like people believe in the product and they see it so clearly, and they're using it very actively. So that's awesome. I love that. Yeah, we could definitely take a stab at that. And actually one thing to note is that we are trying to tailor these pitches, at least like with some nuance, depending on the audience. So I would say this deck is a little bit more tuned towards investors. And one element that investors look at is like, hey, who's your executive team? Do you have the talent to actually execute and build this? But for other audiences, particularly like with sponsors, they're going to care about, hey, who is this audience that you're talking about? Show us like, what you, really have here. Like, is this thing actually being used? Like, if we sponsor you as a brand, are we going to show up in front of anybody? And then what's their behavioral model? So that's awesome. I think this is super helpful. Bryan, sorry, I cut you off before. You have your hand raised.
Yeah, no worries. It was just a quick comment on the exit strategy thing. I think the exit strategy should not be a slide in the core pitch, but like you said, in the appendix, or at least we should have an answer prepared for it. Yeah, just because keeping the conversation really focused, and if they don't focus on that, then I don't know if we need to draw attention to it.
Makes perfect sense.
I agree. I just wanted to call it out that some investors will have that question, and to make sure that we are prepared to answer during the pitch, because most of these pitches will be conversational.
Yep. So let's say Eugenia was an investor and asked that question. What is the exit strategy? And
actually, Bryan, you're probably a better person to answer this one. Sorry, I'm gonna have to bounce that one over to you. I would actually. So Bryan has worked super hard on a lot of this documentation. So I'm so grateful for this, everybody. Really big shout out to Bryan, because it's like a new space for all of us and a lot of complexity and legality. But also there's a lot of philosophy and values that we want to retain as an organization. But I'll tee you up, Bryan, to speak to our beliefs there.
Actually, I've been involved in a lot of the how we would like functionally do it, but not necessarily so much on our strategy, right? In that specific thing. So like, like your tip, and this is not a prepared answer for investors. This is just talking to Leyline now as a company or as a group. Typical companies, usually exit strategies consists of a few different things, either being acquired, since we're a technology platform, very common cases are like a Google-like company might want to pick up a company like this that's building a platform like this. Another thing is to IPO, which is to go public and to, basically earn back the initial investments that were put into the company by selling a lot of shares of the company and generating a lot of value that way, right? But then that feeds into the whole unending year-over-year growth of capitalism, which I'm not necessarily sure that's necessarily our realistic goal for this project. So the question is, what ROI, what liquidity event makes sense for our company? And that's something that I don't have a great answer to right now, because it's not exactly clear that an investor is going to like get rich off of our platform just because our strategy is so humanitarian / charitable. We're looking to put a lot of the energy and money that is generated by our platform back into the ecosystem, right? Just to kind of lift people up. So, that's not really an answer that says this is how people are going to get ROI on their investment, or this doesn't really answer the exit strategy, but it's just kind of our philosophy right now. And I think we need a good answer that investors want to hear, but at the same time is true, is realistic based on what our direction is.
Yeah, I think we can also try to identify the categories that we're trying to speak to. And I'll show you guys this in a little bit, but there are multiple options that we have for funding sources. One of them is going to be just, crowdfunding, large donors, small donors. Second is grants from government or from foundations or family offices. But what we're looking at the moment in terms of just speed is actually going to be in the angel investor, social impact investor, and venture capitalist space. So that's what a lot of these decks are kind of tuned for. The other one is sponsorships. So sponsors like game companies or brands would actually donate to the prize pool and also have a cash component tied to that too. So the speed component is really critical because we just need to get the seed funding so that way we can properly hire the team and staff that we need. And so what they're typically looking for is an ROI, but the type of deal may flex. So one example is essentially a loan, or what is like called a SAFE in the investor world, where you basically get like X amount of dollars, like say $500,000 or $1 million or whatever, and you have a fixed period to be able to pay that back. And if you don't, then it converts into equity in the company. So let's say we get $1 million, and if we don't pay that back, it converts into say 30% of shares of the company. So the other deal is just straight up selling equity, and we could say, hey, we'll sell 30% of our equity, and then you'll have a bunch of shares of the company for the $2 million investment. So those are pathways for us because we have the B Corp in Canada, and we have the nonprofit in California. That's a 501c3 pending. You can't really sell equity from that type of entity, but with the B Corp in Canada, we can. And a B Corp is essentially operates like a private company, but it is beholden to triple bottom line goals, which are audited from external parties. So triple bottom line is measuring impact on people, planet, and then profit. So we are going to adhere to every nonprofit principle that we have to adhere to from California onto the B Corp entity. So that way we are always following the correct protocols and rules and principles of nonprofit, no matter where we are. But the B Corp in Canada allows us to operate internationally as well as drive fundraising through equity if we need to. So we're exploring those options. It's not ideal for us to sell any equity because, frankly, we don't anticipate really going public. Like, it doesn't make any sense for us as a nonprofit to become a public corporation. So shares of equity won't be as valuable to an investor. So what we want to gear towards are investors that have a desire to have positive social impact, that yes, they would love to turn a profit and, make some money off of this, but are also largely focused on how do we improve the state of the world. And we believe Leyline can really accelerate that and make a big impact here. So we're actually now going to market and talking to as many people as possible to present the value proposition and say, hey, let's partner up. And it's kind of this matchmaking where you meet a bunch of investors, and we're meeting a lot or reaching out to a lot as well. And we have to figure out, okay, do our values align? Do our expectations align? And how do we work together? What's that relationship? Are they going to be very hands-on and control a lot of our decisions? Are they very hands-off and very distant? So it's a lot of like feeling out each other and then demonstrating that, hey, we've got the reputation and capability to execute on this. So in the perfect world, we end up getting like, $2 million donated by an angel that's just like, make this thing happen. I don't care about making the money. Like, here's just a bunch because I'm a billionaire. That is a possibility. I think it might be kind of rare, but it's out there and we can chase it. Secondarily, it's like an angel investor, a social impact investor, which gives us that loan, which we can eventually pay back as our revenue model kicks off. And then there's the venture capitalists that are just like, hey, we want to make sure that the profit is in place. This is a great cause for sure, but it's really about maximizing our portfolio. So that's the range of people that we're reaching out to now with this package that we've built. And I've got a lot of confidence. Honestly, the response so far is great. There are people that are very interested in working with us from across the entire spectrum. But the challenge is these kind of relationships and deals take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks, if not more, to convert into a contract and to have checks cut to the organization. So we're in great position, but it's still going to be a lot of hard work to continue to work these deals and to continue investing in our product and community to show that we have growth and that we are really following through on our vision. So hope that answers the question.
Yeah, one other kind of method that we're looking to give some ROI to investors is potentially through like a rev share kind of deal. And basically what that is as we earn more revenue through transaction fees or something similar, or maybe NFT sales, that we would cut in investors at an appropriate amount, right? And then so basically they're incentivized to help us do well because then that helps them do well, right? So that's just another model that we would like to propose that we think is actually a better model for investors than say something standard like equity.
Yeah, that's a great call. And yeah, so what'll happen is over the next like week or a couple weeks or so, we're going to end up getting all these different offers, and they may propose like a different way of investing, and then we kind of pick and choose. Okay, this is the right fit for us, or what we feel most confident that we can accomplish. So yeah, I pulled up one of our key documents that we have as part of our like due diligence packet. So all these investors like want to do their due diligence on us, make sure we're not like a bunch of vaporware or just out of our minds. And big shout out to Mama and to Steve and to Daniel, CZ, who put a lot of effort into putting this thing together. Bryan as well on our cost modeling. So essentially, this is like kind of the full details of our 5-year fiscal plan, revenue and costs, etc. This is quite dense to read, but what I'm going to jump over to is our revenue sources. So to explain those projections that you saw on the slide, our core focus is building our user base that's going to enable like a heavy volume of transactions and items being created, etc. So early on, we're going to be focusing a lot on just raising funds via donations, and theoretically investments would come into this space to help us fill out our revenue gaps. and it'll grow year by year. And the assumption is that as we start to gain about, I think, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, about 45% growth rate year over year, we make these very conservative assumptions that, okay, per user, we'll probably be crafting, 12 items per year, which is extremely, month over month, 45% growth. Thank you, Steve. So this is extremely conservative where, one person will craft one item. And the assumption is this one item that has intrinsic value that they would want to trade and somebody would want to buy from them. So assuming that maybe 5 trades take place throughout the year and the item value on average is $30. And again, this is also sandbagging it because, one, we're already injecting gift cards into these non-fungible tokens. And on top of that, they're going to be unique and rare and have amazing art on top of it. So these items will probably be way more than $30. That's the general assumption here. But again, we're trying to be as conservative in our forecast as possible. So as we grow, that means that more and more transactions happen on the platform, and we are able to apply, say, a 2% transaction fee for each of those trades. Another interesting thing to consider is that because we're in a blockchain space, there will just be speculators and people that are looking to purchase assets so that they can sell and trade it based off its own value. So these are not even necessarily people that are participating in the actual rewards program and, earning Leyline points. They're just straight up buying items. So that market is small, but it is also very lucrative. And in the gaming world, this is often referred to as the whales. It's like the top 1% or top 0.5% that spend tens of thousands of dollars in these games, like literally. We actually have teams of white glove services that just focus on those whales to make sure they have an amazing experience. So with that, we get to scale our transaction revenue over time. And so that's really the key, is that by investing in the platform and the community, you're going to drive this sense of value and stickiness to the network. And through our partnerships, we continue to expand the utility of our non-fungible tokens to all these platforms on the blockchain. Any questions there? Because this is pretty heavy stuff.
Yeah, I had a question about the item value. So I was just curious how you came up to the $30 number. I know you said that was conservative. I just didn't quite follow.
So, I mean, on average, like the amount of gift cards that we're purchasing, for the prize pool, like will probably be around a $20 range. Because like right now, the highest card we are offering is a $50 card, like a Steam gift card, for example. So there'll always be this cash value assigned to it. And then the question is, okay, how much more above that would people attribute value to the NFT asset? So it's this combined gift card plus like the rare unique token, and it's like exclusive art and characteristics, etc. So that's kind of the assumption. And then we compare against like, hey, what are items selling for now on the blockchain market space? And it's all over the place. Like, a couple of planets sold last month for $1 million each. And CryptoKitties are selling for, hundreds of dollars as well. So this part is very unpredictable. We have no idea whether it's going to go insane or like kind of flatten out or die off. And honestly, it won't die off. Like this is the future. Like, this is what we're seeing right now. So it's, it's accelerating tremendously.
Actually, that gives me a thought, and I've absolutely no knowledge of what I'm talking about. But when you were talking about the exit strategy, as the whole financial viability of Leyline is actually relying on these items getting values, why the exit strategy would not be into some highly speculative items?
Actually, that is a component. So one option for us is essentially us directly selling the non-fungible tokens. Because we can mint any number of unique rare things, like say, hey, this quarter we're going to only make 2,000 unique Leyline items that'll never be created ever again, cannot be earned in any other way, and set a price on that. So right now we've only locked it in to say, hey, we're going to just keep this flat. So that way it's more about, we just need to raise operational costs or cover some operational costs. But in theory, we could create this mechanism that just continuously, drives revenue for us. And it's essentially in the form of donations. So say like, instead of like holding a gala event with $1,000 plates for a bunch of rich people, we could just have like hey, we're going to do a giant sale where you're going to get a bunch of awesome, non-fungible tokens, which you can use in trade, etc.
And could
I hope I'm
that
answering
be...
the question.
But actually, my question was fundamentally, could that not be an exit strategy?
Oh,
for investor to cash out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's even more opportunities there because one of the strategies for us is to actually run a kind of a larger sale, and probably in the form of a governance token sale, which are kind of the newer evolutions of an ICO, which is the initial coin offering. So an ICO is kind of like the equivalent of an IPO for public companies where they sell their stocks, their shares. Initial coin offering is, we say, hey, we're about to launch this cryptocurrency and you could buy in early. And then this is like where the funds get allocated to. Governance tokens are actually a little bit different in that when you buy a governance token, it actually gives you stake and a share of voice into the strategy of the platform and the team behind it. And so through doing that, these kind of fundraisers go anywhere from 8 million to 120 million in funds raised. So it is actually a very effective exit strategy. So the way we can kind of see it is that we're looking for these initial seed investments to build that runway for us to raise a ton of money and then basically pay back those loans. That's like one pathway we can take, and there's a lot of opportunity in that space. So I think we can really pull this off. Like, our trends are fantastic to go in that direction, but still it needs a ton of work. We need a lot of work to do to build that user growth and community where these type of sales actually make sense. Because you can see the most successful ICOs and governance token sales and NFT sales are really predicated on the strength and the size of the community. All of these, because what happens is that when you put up the sale, people don't have any intrinsic, commitment to it if they're just a, person browsing the internet. But if someone's committed to your product, is an advocate, really believes in it, they will put the money in to say, listen, I want to stake in this thing because I believe in it. I see it's going to happen. And then they become the advocates and say, hey, guys, you really need to get on a sale because this thing is going to take off. So that's what happens with a lot of these blockchain ICOs and governance token sales, is that their community is the core behind all the investment that comes in. So, I can't emphasize enough how important community is for our strategy.
And then, Antoine, one thing to reiterate is your suggestion is basically the rev share model, right? So as we do more NFT sales or raise money in that form, that, investors could earn a piece of it.
Mm-hmm. Don't worry, Antoine, we're not selling crypto. So here's other principles that we are going to adhere to. One is that Leyline points can only be minted by doing good things in the real world. And people with lots of money cannot just straight up buy it. So that's the one, mechanism that's going to be very important to us. So whether or not this converts into a cryptocurrency over the long run is still TBD. There's actually no need for it in the way we've designed our business model. So I think that's quite interesting for us. Whereas most companies actually rely on minting their own currency and then handling that balance. So there's a very important principle on our side to do that. Kareem, it's true. Money donations are good deeds. But again, if we're trying to create equitable access to Leyline points, we don't want the whales to come in and say, like, I got to buy all this shit up and take all the tokens from you guys. We should figure out some way to enable monetary donations because it is very effective. So maybe we'd have some kind of cap on it, but I don't know. I'm open to, flexing on that. I just don't know the exact details, but would love ideas there.
Well, maybe the donations just results in things other than Leyline points specifically, right? So NFTs or whatever.
True. Agreed. Oh, Eugenia, sorry, I missed the question there. There's so many messages. Why it's important to hit self-sustainability. Yes. So to me, the historical challenge in a nonprofit space is that they often don't have any sustainable business model, which means that they're constantly trying to do fundraising all the time. And so, anywhere between 20 to 30% of cost and time and energy for nonprofits is going into just like, begging people to, donate money. And so one thing we want to avoid is having to be stuck in that kind of space where we want to be innovating rapidly and also have the capacity to bring in really strong talent. Because again, that's the trap with a nonprofit space, is that they can't pay their people well. And so they can't attract people from Google and Facebook and Apple and Blizzard. And so therefore their innovation is stifled because they don't have amazing talent and they cannot scale. So having a business model that brings sustainability allows us to attract a lot of talent and to reinvest into building and creating this platform. And that's why the tech companies are kicking so much ass, is that they just overinvest and invest and they just grow and grow and grow. So that's key, because then we now have an engine to build an amazing team and to compensate people competitively in a space so that people can have a great living and, not have to sacrifice their life just by pursuing something good. That principle is so important, that we want to make doing good profitable. And then the beautiful thing that is, if we now have this engine that's going to generate more and more value, we can just give it all to the people. And that's the key. Like, we want to eradicate poverty, and we want to stop climate change, or, solve climate change. So that's the hope, is that this entire thing becomes exponential. And when you start to have exponential impact, that means that you can really do some massive changes in the world. So that's why I think sustainability is very, very key to what we're building here. And again, we don't want to, create a bunch of billionaires on the crypto world and then just have all that wealth consolidated again. We want to make billions and then just distribute it to people equitably and help enrich lives and make the world a better place. I hope that answers the question. All right, I'm going to try to browse through more comments here. Yeah.
Yeah. In the beginning of the presentation or the pitch, you mentioned, we're a nonprofit, I just think that that's an opportunity for some of the audience, specifically equity investors, to tune out or be like, why am I here? Why am I here?
Yeah.
Right? And so, for sponsors and everyone else, impact investors, great thing to say immediately. But maybe for the investor audience, maybe we hold that for later and say, Leyline operates both a nonprofit and a for-profit entity, social B Corp, blah, 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 right? That's one thing.
Yeah, a great call out. And I think that's why the text there doesn't have nonprofit. So I think depending on audience would have to, adjust the language accordingly. Because it's true, I've spoken to some investors and they're like, yeah, so what are we supposed to do with this thing? I was like, oh, we have a B Corp in Canada. Yeah, we can make something happen. It's like, okay, it clicks. So yeah, it's a great call. That will tune as part of the sales pitch. Yeah, it's kind of funny. We're just showing how the sausage is made. It'd be interesting if investors watch this later on. Kareem, you had a question. Market targeting at the beginning. So let me see if I can pull up that slide. I would say this go-to-market strategy is, again, still TBD. A lot of the future planning is really going to be a response to, hey, where are things really working well for us? The reason why Latin America is a kind of an easy target for us is multifold. One is that we're already getting tons of traffic and users coming out of Latin America with zero localization and zero marketing. And there's also a very clear value proposition with our use case and the way that the product works. Because, US dollars just go a really long way in many Latin American countries, and people are quite engaged and used to digital platforms providing abundance for them. There's actually an amazing story. I I think it's on Polygon. You should do Polygon Venezuela Gaming. And essentially, there are a bunch of people just playing a game. I think it's called Shadowrun. I keep messing this one up. But yeah, they're playing an MMO. RuneScape. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, they're literally, staying alive and making a living by just playing a game and selling their items. And that's exactly what we're doing, but to a way better degree and a higher magnitude. So there's already, quite a large population that's quite used to, engaging in digital activities to earn money. So there's a massive opportunity there. And so, yeah, and obviously, like, a lot of them are speaking Spanish, and Spanish is like one of the largest languages on the planet. So, and we have the ability to localize in Spanish very easily and have a network of Spanish community managers that we can kind of bring to bear. So that'll be a next experiment for us. And then we also have a very strong footprint in Western Europe, so that may also be an easy target for us to hit. But again, the plan here is we want to take it step by step, not try to swallow the ocean, but just take baby steps and experiment and find what's working and then expand. And obviously, the more money we can generate now allows us to hire much more staff that can operate in parallel. Antoine, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was about to say European footprints. You're talking about Daniel's feet again.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, Daniel's furry feet. I've yet to see that NFT though. Like, we got to get that moving, guys. I beg you. I beg the GameSpot or Andrew, if you can help us. That's going to be a legendary item, I think. Highly sought after. Daniel, can you imagine your feet being sold for $1,000? Oh my gosh, that's going to be so great.
I never thought it'd be a foot model, but I guess that's.
Okay, Eugenia, yes, you have a unrelated question?
It's super unrelated to this pitch deck, so if we wanted to wrap up these questions first, I'd be totally okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. We're almost on time. Anything else, guys, would you like to ask? I hope this was helpful for you, because one thing I think is very important is that we got to know our product in and out. Every single one of us has got to be super fluent, because we are all like salesmen and saleswomen for Leyline, because we just talk to everybody. I'm sorry. So yeah, I think it's very important, at least from my point of view, is my ability to speak to everything that we're doing actually helps to, win over people to join. And in the same way that, I do spend a lot of time on Discord, at least listening, and it allows me to think more clearly on what are the things we want to improve on a product. So it's just really important that all of us are so fluent in how this thing works, that are using our product and trying to improve it every single day. That's what's going to, that's how we're going to win. We need to win this market and help people. And you do that by using your product all the time and becoming your own advocate for this.